Welcome to the fourth part of the Dai Shogi video series. In this part, I shall go over some of the game's miscellaneous rules and also cover some basic strategy. So, to begin, let me cover the rules on repetition, which occurs when the game enters a cycle of repeating positions. These rules are taken from Chu Shogi, more specifically the Chu Shogi rules as stated by the Japanese Chu Shogi Association. And since Chu Shogi is a derivative of Dai Shogi, these rules should also logically apply to Dai Shogi as well. The rules on repetition are as follows. If the attacker is repeatedly threatening an enemy piece during the cycle, they must disengage the cycle before the fourth repetition or forfeit the game. If both players are parsing using lion powers, the player who parsed first must disengage the cycle before the fourth repetition or forfeit the game. If the cycle does not involve lions and neither side is attacking, then upon the fourth repetition the game ends in a draw. For all other cases, the player who causes the fourth repetition of a board position loses the game. So, with repetition covered, let's quickly go over other minor rules. In Dai Shogi, checkmate does not actually end the game. The king must actually be captured before the game ends. In practice, this rarely happens, as the losing player will resign as soon as defeat becomes inevitable. Also, in formal games, a player who makes an illegal move immediately forfeits the game. Those are the miscellaneous rules I wanted to cover. Now let's go over some basic strategy. There's not a whole lot of online material available on Dai Shogi strategy, so I have pulled these tips from the blog of Dr. Eric Silverman, who has published several posts on large shogi variants. The strategy of Dai Shogi is fairly similar to Chu Shogi, and several of the key points of Chu Shogi strategy can be quickly adapted to the larger board. Let's begin with opening tips. The opening of Dai Shogi is a bit more freeform than in Chu, but the same basic opening principles can be applied. Don't neglect your short-range pieces. Compared to Chu Shogi, the Dai Shogi board has a pawn line 3 pawns longer, so bring forward some of the short-range exclusive pieces to fortify it. The cat swords, angry boars, stone generals, and knights can be used for this. Take care not to let weak points develop in your pawn line or the enemy lion will exploit them. For example, the pawns on the 2 and 14 files are undefended at game start and can serve as good vantage points for enemy pieces, so be sure to patch those quickly. The stronger exclusive pieces, the flying dragons, violent oxen, evil wolves, and iron generals, can serve to help back up your pawn line as the pawns advance. Keep your king safe. The king begins the game in a basic castle formed by the gold generals, blind tigers, and drunk elephant. It would be a good idea spending a few early turns to reinforce this structure, perhaps by bringing over the silver generals or even the dragon horses or dragon kings. Place your lion high and central. Compared to Chu Shogi, the lion is a bit less influential, mainly due to the larger board and the lack of anti-trading rules. However, it is still a good idea to place the lion close to the center of the board, where it can exert its influence as strongly as possible. You can use the lion's powers to gain easy material or divert your opponent's forces away from the center to allow you time to fortify. Just be careful of the threat of a lion trade if your opponent gets fed up. If things are getting hairy for your lion, consider jumping it to safety behind the pawn line. To illustrate these principles, I shall now show you 4 example openings. In this first example opening, both players have set up a fairly solid opening position, with their lions backing up several central pawn advances, and the evil wolves providing additional support. This position looks ripe for the lions and evil wolves to battle for the center whilst the players develop an attacking position on one side of the board. In this second example, white is being fairly aggressive with their lion, having already captured a go-between on the left. Black, on the other hand, is using their lion, an evil wolf, and a dragon horse to lock down the center. Notice the pawns being advanced on the right flank. Black may be planning an attack here. Now this is fairly early in a Dai Shogi opening. An opening in this game can easily last 100 moves. However, it seems black is more solid. White has made a small material gain, but their lion is unprotected and could be harassed to gain black some tempai, whilst black has developed some more pieces and has a better center structure overall. This third example is similar to the second in that white has made liberal use of their lion, capturing a go-between on the right this time. Black is developing an attack along the left flank, using a violent ox backed up by a rook. Again, black holds the center, with their lion backed up by a bishop, and the lion's influence is restricting white's dragon horse. Again, it seems black has made better use of their time here. Although white's lion does restrict black's options on the right side of the board, black's real power is being pointed at the left side, with their lion dominant in the center and the violent ox rook battery pointing down the 14th file. This final example has both players acting cautious, placing both lions centrally to support the pawn line with the evil wolves providing additional support. Neither player has obvious weaknesses. Black appears to be preparing an advance on the right flank, whereas white is advancing in the center, perhaps to set up a higher lion placement. As you can see, the opening of the Daishogi game can be quite diverse. Players can exert pressure quickly and early, forcing the opponent to commit their forces to one side or the other. Piece placement can be varied depending on a player's playing style, so maintaining flexibility is important. The weaker pieces, especially the evil wolves, should be used to support the pawn line as the pawns advance. Next, let's move on to the middle game. The middle game of Daishogi is a complicated affair, but again the principles of Chushogi can be adapted to the 15x15 board. Advance carefully. This is even more important in Daishogi than Chushogi, since you have a larger army with more short-range pieces and a longer pawn line. Be sure to advance these pieces carefully when developing your attack. Try to resist the impulse to rush your pawns into battle lest the enemy lion gobble them up. A careful push supported by short-range pieces such as the generals and evil wolves will win you territory much more effectively. Avoid pointless material losses. At some point, you may need to exert force on one side of the board to gain space and cramp your opponent's position, and doing so will be harder if you lack the numbers. If you do end up down in material, try to avoid exchanges and instead aim to promote some of your pieces to make up for the lost material. And if you hold a material advantage, you should try to force exchanges to open up new lines of attack. Don't rush towards promotion. Compared to Chushogi, Daishogi's larger board means that it will take more time to promote pieces. The long-range pieces are even more powerful than in Chu, so they can be especially helpful in your attack. For this reason, it's a good idea to ensure your pieces with strong promotions have the space they need to promote without getting harassed or captured. Some pieces with strong promotions, the Gold Generals, Phoenix, Kirin, and Drunk Elephant, should be held back until the endgame. The Golds and Drunk Elephant are especially useful defensive pieces, so wait to promote them until they have a safe, clear passage to the promotion zone and your king is secure. The Phoenix and Kirin promote to the two most powerful pieces in the game, so wait to promote them until the board opens up, and keep them protected as they advance due to their awkward movements. Keep your lions centralized and patrolling. This Chushogi principle can be adapted to the larger board easily, but as the example openings show, the larger board also permits different lion adventures at times. The challenge here is to maximize the lion's effectiveness in the opening, where the pawn line can keep it safe from attack, and in the endgame, where a lion attack on the enemy king is often the decisive attack. The late middle game, where pieces drop like flies and new lines of attack open, will usually be the most dangerous time for your lion. Keep it safe from the lines of fire of your enemy's long-range pieces, and don't be afraid to retreat it temporarily if you must. Better to keep your lion safe than sacrifice it for early material gains. Don't forget about defense. In many games in the chess family, offense is often favored over defense, which means defense is all too easily neglected. The rooks and side movers are especially useful for defense. The rooks can patrol in front of the king's castle, whilst the side movers can patrol the outskirts of your camp. The short-range pieces on the flanks, as well as the lances and reverse chariots, can be used to keep your opponent from opening pathways for promotion. And that is all for the middle game. Lastly, let me quickly go over the end game. There's not much to say for the end game, but some good tips. Advance the Gold Generals and Drunk Elephant when it is safe to do so, advance your lion on the enemy king, and promote your pieces when possible. The die-exclusive pieces can sometimes benefit from not promoting. The Knight, Cat Sword, Violent Ox, and Flying Dragon have some moves they cannot use once they promote, so it may be a good idea to leave those pieces unpromoted. On the other hand, the Angry Boar, Stone General, Iron General, and Evil Wolf should always be promoted. Oh man, all that talk about strategy has done my head in, so that is it for part 4. In part 5, we shall analyze an actual Daishogi game. See you then!